I would like to, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here. I haven't been here before, so it's quite an experience to me, and it's something I'm looking forward to for the next 2 days, to experience your country and your city. I would like very much, just before I go into my lecture and my PowerPoints, just to grab on some of the points that Asbjørn just mentioned, because while you still have it in your head what the law is in Norway, I just want to tell you how we regulate it in Denmark. Because in Denmark, joint custody, as I understand it, this discussion here in Iceland is not about joint custody, it's about forced joint custody. Isn't that right? Mm-hmm. It's about the judges having the rights to force upon a parent who doesn't want to have the joint custody, because you automatically get joint custody on separation and divorce. Is that true?
Yes.
So it's as a tool for the judge. That's the discussion here. And that's what we have both in Norway and in Denmark. In Denmark, joint custody is more like a frame. It does not have very much content for daily life. That's the parent who has the domicile or the residence or whatever you would like to call it. That's the competences lies with the address or where the child lives. So I agree that as long as the frame is only really a matter of joint responsibility, the joint feeling of having this community about the children, about the child, it does not have the same ways of being the starting point of quarrels, you might say. But I would like just to go really fast through, I always work with... Oh, is it here? No?
It's just the space.
Oh, the space? Okay. I'll quickly go through this because I can see in your program that you can see what my experiences is. I've been a lawyer for the last 25 to 30 years, and I've almost only dealt with family law cases. I've been on this committee where we planned the joint custody and the forced joint custody and most of all the other content of the joint custody law, and it's very much the same as I understand that Asbjørn has been telling you about. In Denmark, it started just a quick road through. We started in 1996, where we changed, and that's 15 years ago, and you're 40 years behind. So we can't really count, but many years ahead of you, as I understand it. In 2002, it was no longer a term to be discussed when people got separated and divorced. It was automatically joint custody, as you know it. And in 2006, a committee was sat down. I think I can hear it's almost the committee that you heard from Norway that Asbjørn was the chair of. And it was put together with a lot of different organizations and NGOs and parliament members and old law professors. And it came out with this report called The Best Interest of the Child, or the Child Perspective. And the recommendation there was that forced custody should be a possibility along with sole custody, and that it would be a positive tool for the judges, and it would be a good tool also before mediation. We were 12 voting for and 3 voting against. We had a lot of other recommendations, but we don't have the time, so I cannot share it with you right now, but you can ask if there's something you want to know. We had 2 judges on the committee too, I might say. And the overall goals and what we thought, or what the recommendation was, as you can see, that it was said and it was thought upon that it would be a positive thing to create the feeling of a communication between the parents, and it would dampen the conflicts on the parents. And we would think that it would be in the best interest of the child that it had the right to both parents. In Denmark, we see very much it as the best interest of the child, and I would say, I don't know how to say it, det løber mig koldt ned ad nakken. When this is presented as a matter of equality, it's not a matter of equality, it's a matter of what is best for the child and what is the right for the child, and how can we best preserve, how can we best protect, and how can we best take care of the children in these conflicts and in these not only conflicts but ways along the life when the family are thrown apart. It is the belief that upon this report that having the right to both parents and not one parent the right to sort of throw out the other one is best for the child. And it's not a political thing, but of course we also had on the committee the father organization, a mother organization. The father was for, the mother was against. But that was not really, they didn't have that strong vote. This report went into Parliament, and Parliament threw everything around, and it came out with the recommendation that joint custody was the general rule over all, and even when the parents did not live together when the child was born, the joint custody was the overall rule, and that it was very difficult to terminate it, and we could only terminate it in case of very, very heavy reasons, heavy weighing reasons, compelling reasons. This has led to a lot of critics, a lot of trouble, a lot of lawsuits, and it's my belief, I have 300 cases a year about this. I do absolutely nothing else for the last 10 years. And it's my belief that it is not the joint custody as a whole. That's not the problem. The problem in Denmark after 2007 was the fact that there were no ways of getting out of the joint custody. So it wasn't the tool that made it possible to decide joint custody, as it was the way of, or rather, the no way out, because it was so difficult to get out the last 3 or 4 years, because the signals were so strong from the law that it was overall the joint custody. When this law was trådt i kraft, no, it was implemented, and it what is it? Yeah, it was enforced. 1st of October 2007. They decided, Parliament, that they had to evaluate, and this has taken place from last year till now, and the evaluation committee, I was on this committee, and we have published a report with a lot of things to go with it, trying to evaluate what was the good thing in the law, what was the bad things, and what can we do to change it. One of the problems when the law was enforced was that people didn't quite understand what was the content, what was the meaning. Was the absolute overall rule, joint custody, equal to 7/7 visitation, what you called shared residence, and you called, I'm not quite sure whether it's the same, because in Denmark 7/7 is, well, shared living, shared residence, but it does not have the legal consequences. We don't share or split the finance, the child support from the states and so on. We also found that all the good thinking about the child welfare, the psychologists, and everything that has to go with the law in 2007 wasn't fulfilled because, of course, there was no money. So all the good thoughts were stopped by no money. So what we found was that we needed a better communication, better education of the public, of the people, of the parents on what joint custody really means. It is only a frame. Most of the competence is related to the living, to the address, to where the child, in fact, has its base. It's been a forbidden word, base, in Denmark. It's like a fyord. I don't know what that is. It's like a fyord. Ved du, hvad det er? Nej, det hedder det ikke noget, der hedder. Yeah, you don't say base. It's no good. Because when you say base, it means having one parent ahead and another one behind, and that's no good. But that, of course, is wrong, in my opinion. Many parents in Denmark mistook the joint custody with the 7/7 visitation. So when they split up, typically the argument would be from, I'm sorry to say, and I wouldn't call myself a chauvinist, but it is, I mean, if you as a father should have the right to your child, you should go to court, and if not, it's the mother in the settlements at home. That's how the figures state in Denmark. 36% of fathers gets the address in Denmark. It would be that the father would claim 7/7, or I'll go to court and I'll fight you all the way. Which means that a lot of agreements between the parents would be 7/7, joint custody, and then the problems would rise because this was not a voluntary agreement. This was a forced agreement. Not in court, at home, battling. And we had to make clear that 7/7 has nothing to do, not necessarily something to do with the joint custody. Joint custody is the frame. Joint custody is the feeling of the joint responsibility and the communication, the community about the child. But the visitation is something else. And where would the child live and go to school and have its day-to-day life? It's not necessarily 7/7. It could be a joint relationship, a joint responsibility, a community about the child, even though the child is living, say, 9 days with one part and 5 days with the other part. And it does not necessarily have to be with the mother. But it starts with the maternal leave. I mean, it starts in the night with the first lortebleer. It's not when the quarrel starts. It starts much earlier. I don't know much about how your family are in Iceland and how you are doing, I mean, maternal leaves, who gets off and who takes the children, who takes care of them. Yeah, it's split. It is? Oh, that's a modern thing. So why has not the law followed? But as I understood, some of the politicians here has been saying that in Denmark we would probably now take away and remove this possibility of forced joint custody. That's absolutely not the case. It's absolutely certain that the joint custody and the forced joint custody are here to stay, and it will never be removed. And I'm not sure I would say happily, but coincidentally, 2 days ago, Parliament agreed upon how this new amendment to the law should be. And it's now possible to lift or to annul the joint custody when the cooperation does not work well. It's not as difficult as it was before, but it is still very much underlined in this political agreement that the joint, I would almost say the jointness, but the community, the joint responsibility is a very, very important issue, and it is a very important signal from the law. And the thing that has changed in Denmark now is that there has to be, and it has to be substantiated, that there is a positive potential for cooperation. So now, in the future, we have to go to court and say, this is a very good parent, and this parent would like to cooperate, this parent is very blah, 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 blah. Because yesterday we had to say, that other part is, and it's not very good, and they don't work together, and they can't talk, and they never do this and that and that. And of course, this is a much better situation if we have to go to court. We have a lot of other things being changed, but it will take too far to go into that now. We have a discussion on this 7/7 visitation because it is in the law that visitation is up to 7 days in a 14 days period. And this has meant, as I just said, that many people has misunderstood the visitation and has thought that that was the right to have the child half the time. And that really has given us a lot of problems. It is not the joint custody. It is the visitation, and it is the feeling that we, as I used to say it, or I normally say it, you talk about joint custody and we talk about the shared custody. I'm not sure you understand the difference, but it's when you say fælles forældremyndighed eller delt forældremyndighed. To me, it's not the same thing. To me, joint custody, fælles forældremyndighed, is being under an umbrella. You share the responsibility, you share the feelings of omsorg. You share the feelings of you have to take care of the child. You have to agree upon. You have to communicate. You have to be in contact about the child. You are under an umbrella, but shared custody, delt forældreskab, 7/7, means you have half a child half the time. You have a child 7 days, and then the other party have the child 7 days, but these homes does not necessarily communicate. They don't have to communicate. And the child is paying the price and has to engage in two different worlds. That's the discussion in Denmark. It is not the joint custody, and it is not the forced joint custody. And it will never go away. It will be used, and it will be a much better tool now, because we had, and that I can tell you, we had a lot of cases. I've had a lot of those clients coming to me and saying, I don't want the joint custody anymore because he or she is blah, 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 blah. And I agree that this is not in the best interest of the child. And I agree that in the mediation process, we don't have forced mediation as you have in Norway, but we have a lot of mediation, and it has become increasing because we have, it's more organized in various parts of the system. And it's, of course, it is an important signal that you can sort of risk not getting out of the joint custody. And you might just have to accept the joint custody. I would not say that it necessarily is a better push to the joint, to the cooperation, but it's not the other way around either. What you were talking about on the second row, this report from Denmark, and I understand that you've had Heide Ottesen up here. She's a scientist from this institute who made this report. And what they conclude is that the judges are in fact able to know when these parents have the material for the cooperation, the community, and when they don't. And only in I think the number is 49, of the cases do the judges rule forced joint custody. In the other cases, they don't, which means that they are able to identify when the problems are too big to go along with the child in a joint custody family. I know she's been used a bit, or these results has been used a bit. And I would say they cannot be used, they should not be used, but it's because it's so various a picture this report gives. And the only, what she says is that you cannot deduct, you cannot say that the work between the parents and the cooperation has been better since joint custody was introduced. You cannot deduct that, but you cannot deduct the other way around. And in Denmark, we have to say that there are parents who cannot and will not cooperate, and the law cannot change that. But I agree what you said, Asbjørn. This law is a regulator of behavior, and it is a law that looks ahead. And it has an influence on how people think and how they behave. And I believe it is absolutely the best right of the child having both its parents, not necessarily with a lot of legal tools to do things and to crawl, but the feeling that they are both there and the joint responsibility is intact. I think that is of great importance. If the mediation is in the regional state office where the case starts, then it's offered as a part of this process trying to solve it there. If the case goes to the court, you will in every court be offered some retsmægling, mediation. And it's free because it's in the court system. It's part of the costs having the lawsuits, the law cases. But if you go private basis, and if you go to me and I will say to my client, don't you think we should try and mediate? And I'll find a good mediator. Then they split it, and then we find we have this. And then we find a third one who can mediate, or we go to the court mediation and bring both the lawyers, or they go without the lawyers. And then, of course, they have to pay the lawyers for coming there if they are not under legal aid. But the mediator from the court is paid by the court. Don't read the Danish paper and don't believe them. No, seriously, there is a group of 3 lawyers. They are banging against this, and they are shouting, and they make websites, and they are claiming that a lot of violent cases ends up with joint custody, and it's terrible. And I mean, if you're very lucky, you can find 2 cases, and you have very specified circumstances, and that is not what's going on. So my answer would be no, of course you cannot have joint custody if the father beats the child or the mother's sister or what do I know. No, and they wouldn't have, but I cannot explain a concrete matter, a concrete case. Why not? Well, because we thought that if it's forced, it's not mediation the way we understand mediation. Mediation has to be that you would like to go into a discussion and hopefully reach an agreement. And forced mediation is, you would say, I know that it's a bit different in Norway because it's when you have to apply for legal aid, as I recall it, right? When you have to apply for legal aid in Norway, you have to go through 2 mediation processes. Isn't that right?
I'm not sure of that, but if you will be divorced, you have to go through mediation.
Yeah, if you want.
The court is not taking people in unless they have a document that they have been.
No, they don't give them legal aid.
Legal aid.
They don't give them money to go to the cases if they have not tried to settle. If they have money on them themselves, they don't have to go through mediation. Isn't that right? Yeah. So it's only for the poor.
Thank you very much, Anja. Thank you.